So I think
Yeah, it's going to be a hot mess at June.
yes.
All right, it's 6 o'clock Apex time, and I will now call to order the regular scheduled council meeting for Tuesday, January 13th, 2023. And thanks to all of you for being here, and welcome those who join us by live stream. We'll go ahead and move to the invocation, but first, I want to say thank you all for coming out tonight as we do the town business. It's very important that we have an engaged community, and I really appreciate you coming out. So before we get to the invocation, Mayor Pro Tem Killingsworth, if you would read a statement.
The town of Apex values and celebrates diversity and inclusion. We see diversity as a strength that binds our community together. Inviting members from different faith communities to deliver the invocation at the beginning of our council meeting supports this unity. Recognizing that not everyone practices the same traditions, we welcome you to have a private moment of silence.
Okay, thank you for that. And at this time, I would like to welcome Elder Creason, full-time volunteer missionary from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So if you would come up and deliver our invocation tonight. Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this chance we have to gather here at this time for an Apex Town Council. We're so thankful to live in this beautiful country that allows us the freedoms that it does. We're grateful for our leaders in this town. We pray that they may have clarity in their mind, that they may continue to discuss the topics needed to continue to benefit the lives of each citizen here in this town. Father, we're grateful for all of our many blessings that we see in our life. We pray that we may have charity and kindness and love in our hearts for all those around us, and that we may continue to be loving and full of compassion for the needs of others. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for this day, and we pray for these things and for this guidance. In the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elder Creason. If you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. I just want to remind you, if you plan to speak tonight in public forum or public hearing item, if you would make your way to my right and see the town clerk to sign in on the appropriate sheet so you can be recognized at that time to speak. We'll move now to consent agenda, but before we go there, I want to make an announcement about an old business item. If you're present for two items listed under old business, please be advised those items will be continued to June 27, 2023 to ensure our residents, members of council, and myself have adequate time to review the budget and allow residents another opportunity to engage. We will conduct an additional budget public hearing on Tuesday, January 27, 2023, prior to adopting the budget and capital improvement plan for the next fiscal year. So with that, we move to consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. With that, are there any changes to the consent agenda before being approved?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for consent item number 10 to be moved to new business.
All right, consent 10, move to new business. Noted. Any other changes? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, Zegerman, second, Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We move now to presentations. So we have 3 presentations tonight, and it's an exciting night. I've been waiting for this moment. All right, so I'm going to ask all council members to join me down here, and we're going to do the presentation. Okay, first, I just want to say, back on June 3rd, at around 7:30 p.m., I was celebrating a historic moment for the town of Apex. I had the opportunity to enjoy seeing these state champions. They brought a chip back to the Peak of Good Living. And if you heard a lot of horns and a lot of screaming at around 9 o'clock in downtown Apex, there was a convoy led by our wonderful police department. One of the officers are here, gave them escort back to the Peak. So we're really excited with your accomplishments. So tonight, we have a presentation for you starting with a proclamation. So as always, we will join in with the reading of the proclamation, started tonight, led off by Councilmember Zegerman.
Yep. So this is the proclamation to celebrate the Apex High School Lady Cougars softball state champions. Whereas on Saturday, June 3rd, 2023, the Apex High School Lady Cougars softball team won the 2023 North Carolina High School Athletic Association State 4A Championship, defeating the Hickory Ridge High School Raging Bulls from Harrisburg, North Carolina, 2-1, and
Whereas the Lady Cougars defeated number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the tournament on their journey to becoming state champions, and whereas in game 1 of the championship series, Apex High lost and went down 1-0 in the series, setting the stage for the following games to test their heart, resiliency, and determination, and
whereas in game 2, the Cougars clawed their way back from a 4-0 deficit to win 8-6 in extra innings, thanks to the walk-off home run from senior Kaylee Askew. And whereas in game 3, Apex High School once again found themselves on the brink of defeat, entering the final inning down 5-2, before putting on a heroic display at the plate to score 6 unanswered runs and win 8-5. And
Whereas after the series, head coach Adam Renzi described his team as gritty, and their gutsy performances with their backs against the wall earned the team the moniker of the Cardiac Cougars from members of the sports media. And
whereas led by Coach Renzi and assistant coach Jessica Riggs, the 2022-2023 North Carolina 4A High School softball champions, Leah Kendall, Bailey Sigmund, Madeline Degnan, Kaylee Askew, Anemi Whitsey, I'm really sorry guys, Lauren McMahon, Amanda Essig, Anelia Whitsley, Abigail O'Connor, Avery Dearman, Catherine Curry, Kendall Bradshaw, Kaylee Kaufman, Haley Spielman, Hannah Tuttle, and Alyssa Kaufman.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim June 14th, 2023, Apex High Lady Cougars Champions Day in the town of Apex. I commend these talented athletes and committed coaches for displaying excellence and camaraderie, and encourage residents to send their congratulations to the team and to support youth athletics in Apex. Signed this 13th day of June 2023. Let's go Cougars! All right, that's not it. That's not it. So as most of you know, these gold boots that I wear, I don't wear these all the time. I don't wear it to every council meeting, but I wear them for celebrations. And this is one tonight. So we're going to do another presentation. All right, so I'm going to ask Coach Renzi if he would come up. And we have a special presentation to all of the players.
Okay. So I'm going to, we're going to read off all of our players and coaches, and I appreciate all of their help and all of their hard work this year. So our first player is number 0, Leah Kendall. Number 1, Bailey Sigmund. Number 2, Madeline Degnan. Number 3 is not here tonight, but Kaylee Askew. Number 4, Anna Mae Whitsley. Whittlesey. I've worked on it. Number 5 is also not here tonight. She's overseas, Lauren McMahon. Number 6, Amanda Essig. Number 7, Annalisa Whittlesey. Number 8, Abby O'Connor. Number 9, Avery Dearman. Number 10, Catherine Curry. Number 11, Kendall Bradshaw. Number 14, Kaylee Kaufman. Number 15, Haley Spielman. Number 16, Hannah Tuttle. Number 17, Alyssa Kaufman. Assistant coach, the one, the only Jessica Ricks. Athletic Director Rob Wienenberner. That's all. Associate Athletic Director Scott Ferguson. I don't think she's here, but Associate Athletic Director Charlie Lido. Also not here, Associate Athletic Director Deb Ludicky. And Associate Athletic Director Britt Morton. And last but not least, Principal Elaine Hoffman.
Last but not least, the coach of the 2023 4A state champions, Adam Renzi. I just want to share a quick story before I move to the final presentation. In the second game, when the Cougars were down, I was standing beside one of the fans of the other school, and he looked at me. He said he was really confident because they were up. And he said, oh, which one of those are your daughter? Like, I don't see anybody that looks like you. I said, oh, okay. So when Miss Askew knocked the ball over the fence to end the game, the second game, well, let me go back. So when he said that, I said, do you see the picture? He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. And I said, you see the center field, left field, first base, the girl in the dugout with the cast? Yeah, oh, And he looked at me, he walked away. So when Callie hit that home run, I looked over at him and I said, all of them, family, mine. And then the third game, I couldn't find him anymore. I don't know what happened to him. But I'll say the reason I present that story is because Apex is a small community with regard to the experience. And what these ladies did by bringing a chip back to the peak of good living is certainly a hometown spirit. And I want to thank you for doing that. I'll say this too, when they came down through Salem Street with the convoy, it took me back to a scene on Remember the Titans. And they came back to the hometown and everybody was lifting them up. And it was truly amazing to see. So thank you, ladies, for representing the peak of good living in a special way. Congratulations again. So the final presentation, we want to display your accomplishment, and we're still working on that. We're putting all the pressure on Sean Purvis, our assistant town manager, and John Mullins, our public works director, to make this happen on one of our streets. But anyway, we're going to give you one of the signs, okay, with let's go. So we got to figure this out. So I'm going to have y'all to step over here so we can take a photo with you holding the signs. And this is for you. And then we have another one that I need for you to actually autograph before you leave the town hall. Okay? Can you do that for us? Okay. So if you would step this way. All right. And we'll figure this out. Yeah. Let me set this up. Okay. Okay. All right.
Everyone of them will hold their awards. You'll stay that way.
All right, Coach Rezzy, you're here in front. We're going to hold the sign together. So if you guys want to go back, go back to you. Just for this
Oh, no, they can stay down here.
Okay.
Just, everybody take one step forward for me.
I have to do a shorty squat.
Yep. And y'all can- I'm gonna have you in the back with the coach, and both of you are gonna hold a sign kind of up.
Okay.
Kind of up, and then all y'all will have your awards up.
We'll show you right here.
And yeah,
Some people ain't.
we're gonna have to get really far in.
We'll just, I can squat. Just like. And you guys are gonna have to get closer.
Awesome. Everybody stay exactly like you are.
1 second. Let's have the two in the middle here to hold the proclamation. The official proclamation. Yeah. You need to hold that up.
Haley, how did you get stuck there? I don't know.
Coach, can you hold the other side of that sign?
Yeah, I can.
Out above.
This is.
Sweet.
Take it to the peak, baby.
Come in just a little bit. Take a step forward. And this clean brother, come in this way. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Nice. What's up? Awesome. I'm gonna take a few. Bear with me. Hold tight right there. Two more. One. All right.
We're good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're good. You're welcome to stay around, or you can leave if you want. So, that's yours.
Oh.
Yeah, you can take that with you. Yeah.
Wait,
Okay, we have the Sharpies for you guys to sign before you leave. So you can take it out to the lobby if you desire to do that. Thank you. I just have one quick question. How many of y'all play for Carl Hilton? Did anybody play for Carl Hilton? Yeah, he wants to take, responsibility for that too, so. For this championship, yeah. All right, thank you, ladies. And coaches and athletic directors.
Thank you.
All right. And I want to also thank, special thanks to Alan Coleman for making all this happen. Thank you so much for that. And Sean Purvis also, Assistant Town Manager, so thank you. And everyone involved from the town, so thank you for doing it. All right, moving now.
Give me a second to
Okay, we'll do.
do this.
All right, we'll let the champions make their exit. One more round of applause for the champions, please. All right, thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for being here. Ambassador J.C. Knowles in the house, thank you. Good job. All right, moving now to presentation number 2. And it is Public Works Week 2023 in Apex. And we have a proclamation, and we will be joining in the reading. Starting off tonight is Mayor Pro Tem Killingsworth.
Public Works Week 2023, whereas public works professionals in Apex strive to help ensure vital infrastructure, utilities, and essential services are functional and well-maintained in order to promote a high quality of life and the overall well-being of our residents, and
Whereas the 55 employees of the town's Public Works Department are engineers, technicians, managers, and dedicated public servants whose efforts support the town's roadways, emergency service vehicles, waste collection service, and town buildings and facilities. And
Whereas Apex's Public Works Department maintains around 200 miles of town-owned roads, provides yard waste services for nearly 23,000 homes, and performs inspections and repairs on over 500 town-owned vehicles and pieces of equipment. And
Whereas public work employees serve as first responders to transportation threats arising from severe weather, through salting streets before a winter storm, removing down trees and other impediments blocking roads, and plowing snow. And
Whereas the American Public Works Association's 2023 theme is Connecting the World Through Public Works, and we recognize the critical role the town's Public Works Department plays in connecting residents to local businesses, activities and parks, and to services necessary for a functioning and healthy society. And whereas Public Works Week was celebrated nationally from May 21st through May 27th, 2023.
Now therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of June 13th through June 19th, 2023 as Public Works Week in the town of Apex, and commend all of our Public Works employees for the invaluable work they do in making sure our residents stay connected to the infrastructure and services that are part of our daily lives, signed on this 13th day of June, 2023. And receiving the proclamation tonight is John Mullis, Public Works Director, and other Public Works employees. So if you would, please come up.
Hey, good seeing you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for everything you guys do.
Thanks. Where's like the chainsaw from? Thank you. You get it going, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'll come over here.
Yes, that's right.
Get a photo.
All right, here you go. Official presentation. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Okay.
You good right there? Yes, sir. Okay. You can see.
That's right.
All I was, the previous ones were.
That's right. All the way over?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to the final presentation tonight, Proclamation Year of the Trail 2023. And we will join in readings for that as well. And leading us off tonight is Councilmember Zeggerman.
This is the proclamation for the Year of the Trail 2023. Whereas the town of Apex's natural beauty is critical to our residents' quality of life, health, and economic well-being, and it is a valuable asset we strive to preserve and maintain in order to strengthen our town for disaster recovery and climate change resiliency. And
whereas the parks, greenways, trails, and natural areas in our community provide a common ground for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds to access our rich and diverse natural, cultural, and historic resources. And
whereas the trails that span our community are an integral part of the recreational and transportation possibilities of our area and promote the enjoyment of nature by our residents and visitors. And
whereas the town of Apex's greenway trails vary from unpaved natural services to paved and boardwalk trails connecting residents to nature, parks, schools, downtown attractions and businesses, and local neighborhoods and communities. And
whereas residents continue to support greenways as the #1 request for recreation facilities in the town, and we are excited to work to expand the town's greenway network for the benefit of all the residents. And whereas the North Carolina General Assembly designated 2023 as the Year of the Trail in North Carolina to promote and celebrate the state's extensive network of trails that showcase our state's beauty, vibrancy, and culture. And
now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim 2023 as the Year of the Trail in Apex, North Carolina, and encourage residents to explore the marvels of the nature present in our beautiful town through our public trails, parks, and greenways. Signed this 13th day of June 2023. And receiving the proclamation tonight is Craig Setzer, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Director, and other park staff members. So if you would please come up and join us.
yeah, that's right, what you do.
All right, you will step this way. Official presentation of proclamation. Thank you for all you do for this town.
Camelbacks and sprayed it all over it.
All right, that brings us to our meeting agenda. And again, I've announced the changes. We deferred to old business items to Tuesday, January 27, 2023. And we also have the addition of new business one. So with that on the record, is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Motion approved. Second.
All right, have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have a set meeting agenda. All right, we now move to public forum. This is an opportunity for the community members to speak. Again, we're all about engagement here, and we want to hear from you tonight. Just a note, we will be listening, and you may see us from time to time making notes, but we are listening, and we just want to make sure we have things documented. So 3 minutes. If you're speaking for 4 or more in a group, you have 9 minutes. And we have quite a few people speaking tonight. So we'll go ahead and get right to it. We'll open up public forum, and we'll call the first speaker tonight. and it's William Gentry. So if you would please come up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Town Council. My name is William Gentry, and I live at 8528 Reagan Road, west of Apex, out on the Lake Jordan game lands, or next to them. First I want to thank you for the hard work you guys are doing in helping shepherd Apex into becoming a progressive and dynamic city. And at the same time, protecting private property owners' rights. I know that can get kind of sticky sometimes, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about. In front of you, you'll see a little map that I drew, okay? There is a project that the planning department is working on to extend a greenway. When the development of Stillwater was developed a year or so ago, the developers promised the residents access to the American Tobacco Trail. Well, the developers are long gone, but the residents still don't have access. So they've petitioned the town planning board to give them access. And from the plans, the planning board, there's an existing pathway this far up into Stillwater. The planning board wants to continue down Reagan Road and go right through the middle of my property. That is the old roadbed for Reagan Road, but when the Corps of Engineers bought all that land, they closed off the secondary roads. And the DOT gave me documents that said we are abandoning the roadway at the edge of your property. So that's the end of Reagan Road right there. So now the town planners feel like they're going to go through my property again and through the Corps of Engineers property to connect with the trail. That's marked in green. They've got two routes that they want. One over on Richard Jenks's property off of Richardson Road, and the other one coming through my property. I've proposed to the planners a couple of alternate routes that won't have that kind of impact, and there's even a third one that they could consider, which is to continue on the present course and go along the property lines of Stillwater, and that will connect them to the trail.
We're historic.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that we're a historic property, and we can't make changes to the property or the house without the Historic Commission's permission. So I'd like to ask the town council to really take a serious look at this and try to help me maintain my property in the form that is in. If this trail were to go through it, it would probably cost about $500,000 in property valuation to me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry.
Can I really quickly say something? I'm his wife. And then I know you all have.
Come on up. Yeah, sure.
Hi, I'm Kathy Restivo. Sorry about this. We just feel very passionately that we came here 30 years ago and we restored an 1890s farmhouse. It's on the state, local, and national registries, and it has protections against this kind of invasion. It's just a group of people who would like access to the trail, who live up the road from us. 3 years. We've been longtime residents, and I find this very disheartening, and I hope that you will do the right thing. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you for that.
You're fine. You're fine. All right, next to speak is Darren. And I just want to remind you, when you come up, please give your name and address as well. And that would be great. That's fine. You can hand it to the clerk.
3 different documents.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, so, sorry, Darren Hoke, 1931 Great Meadow Drive, Apex.
And are you speaking for 4 more people?
I'm speaking for
Okay.
I'm speaking for, there's 4 of us speaking on behalf.
Okay, so you're speaking 3 minutes?
Yeah, I just got 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
I now have 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
We started it over, so you're good.
Okay, thank you. So, City Council, Mayor Gilbert, residents of Apex, thanks for allowing us to speak. We're here representing Woodall Estates community and would like to share some ideas on how we can make Woodall Crest Drive safer after the fortunate death of Ayan, which, as you can imagine, has been very difficult for the parents and for any parent who has children and likes the spaces of Apex. I'll be the first of 4 speakers, and I'd like to spend my time just sharing our history of concerns about the safety of Woodall Crest Drive. As our subdivision filled in from 27 to 2020, and more cars exited the subdivision, it became clear that we started to see some safety risks then. Never mind the future. We saw it a couple years ago. The first thing we noticed is that Woodall Crest Drive, as we all know, is a 1,000-yard straightaway collector road, and despite everyone's best intentions, no matter what we do, it's a 1,000-yard road, and people are going to want to go fast on it. The other thing we noticed as a community of having a lot of children is that there were no crosswalks from Gray Meadow or Meadow Mill, which are the 2 streets that are adjacent to the sidewalk that leads to Scotts Ridge Elementary. We noticed there's not a well-marked crosswalk across Apex Barbecue, and then there's really no safe way to get over to Scotts Mill from our side. The other thing we noticed is that on the street there's no real rules about parking, so people could park their cars there, creating blind spots. And as we all know, all these conditions culminated in what happened a couple of weeks ago. We attended a bunch of public hearings in 2020 with Lennar, and we learned about the mixed-use development. Our takeaway from that was that there wasn't anything that could be done. Right? There was no way to do speed bumps. There was no way to do stop signs, roundabouts. And I think we as a community kind of left disheartened. And since then, I've shared with you some packets of some correspondence members of the board and certain residents have had with the town and with Lennar. We did a traffic study. It did result in a reduction of speed. The speed limit went down to 25. I think there's still some concern that we haven't done enough yet. So I think really the others will give some solutions here, but I think in conclusion, we're not trying to point fingers or assign blame. I think none of us were surprised that this happened because we saw it in the making over the years, and it's extremely unfortunate. And I think this is my last point. Since that happened, like, no kids are out playing, right? Everyone's scared to death now. So we just want to see if we can figure out here and over the next couple of months, and we've talked about it, right? Just got to figure out a way to make that stretch safe for the 30 kids that inevitably are going to spill there, and then inevitably for the couple hundred people that are going to, or thousands that are going to live behind us that are going to also use that road. So thank you for your time, and
thank you so
some
much.
other folks speaking.
Chris Chandler.
Chris Chandler, 1936 Gray Meadow Drive, Apex. Thank y'all again very much. We just want to touch base on some things. One of the things I want to bring up in learning a lot of what's going on is through studies with the National Highway of Transportation and federal transportation, roads in the past have been designed to move cars, get cars down the road, move them fast. That has been changing for the last decade, according to National Transportation. There's a lot of studies, a lot of groups, and some of the handouts I'll hand you will show you some of that. I'm not going to go through it. We don't have the time. They're now trying to redesign for the pedestrians and the people moving around in the communities like we do here in Apex. It's not about the traffic anymore, because deaths in 21, 7,388 pedestrians were killed. That's one every 71 minutes. Some of the other people that this is affecting is also the drivers. We're all pedestrians at some point. A child's brain is not always developed. They're still growing. One paper I gave you, in 23, the average height of a car, small SUV, is 5 to 6 foot. I'm 6 foot. You'll see on that paper, an 8-year-old is 47 inches to 54 inches. A full-size truck SUV, 6 to 7 foot. You still got an 8-year-old that's at 48 inches. Cargo vans, Amazon, FedEx, they're 9 foot plus. With cars on the side, cars traveling, kids playing, they're much smaller, and other traffic passing each other creates a lot of blind spots. One of the things is about speed reduction in all neighborhoods. A lot of these studies are showing as you're slowing the speed down, which is not always everything, you're going to hear about a lot of different electric vehicles now for kids to play. So if you've got a car that's driving 25 miles an hour or 30, and one of these electric vehicles, scooters or bikes, are at 15 or 20, that impact now is higher. And you'll see in this study from the National Transportation, it'll talk about the speed and impact, the rate of a death at 30 miles an hour impact, 40% are going to die. 40 miles an hour, here's an electric scooter at 15. Now you're even higher than that. 73% are going to die. So we've got to change from where we used to be to accept a lot of the new things kids are doing and adults ride. We have been traveling in places and we'll get on those electric scooters, bikes that'll get you around at 15 miles an hour, 18 in some places. So that now has created an impact that is at a higher speed and runs the death rate up. Plus it also is in the study, you'll also see in one of them I handed you the demographic. A lot of them, the Blacks, American Indian, Alaskan Native children and adults are even at some of the greater risk. So this impacts all of us at all aspects. And there's a walkability checklist I handed you that comes from the National Transportation. There are things we can do as a community for all of Apex, not just ours, but all of Apex. And we want to see our kids and all the rest of the kids growing up to be the next Apex High School state champions, or Friendship, where our 20-year-old had went. We want to see all those go up and do that and make Apex even bigger and brighter. And I thank y'all for y'all's time.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Karen Davis.
Karen Davis, 1914 Woodall Crest Drive, Apex. We moved to from Cary to Apex in 2018 because of how Apex was developing into a walkable, bikeable community with so much to offer. We enjoy the location of our home where we can walk to Wake Zone at Publix Point on a Saturday morning for coffee, or bike to downtown for the sculpture walk, lunch, shopping. But we have to strategize in order to do this safely, to go out of our way in some cases to safely reach a place to cross the street to get to a greenway trail. We're healthy adults and we can easily go out of our way to reach a crosswalk to cross the street safely, but this isn't the case for everyone. I'm excited about the future plans for Apex, with our small part of town slated to be anchored by 2 elementary schools, additional greenway trails, potential commercial space on Salem Street between Apex Barbecue and the 540 interchange, and additional housing, we're sure to see an uptick in all kinds of traffic. Drivers, walkers, bikers alike all want to have safe access to all the things that are being offered to us in Apex. So we're asking that the town council take some serious consideration to making proactive decisions for moving around our town efficiently and safely on foot or by car. One step to this end is to add designated and marked crosswalks with stripes specifically across Woodall Crest Drive at Apex Barbecue, Gray Meadow, Aspen River Drives. There are already curbside cutouts at these intersections, and ideally these crosswalks could be raised. We would love to be able to limit parking on Woodall Crest Drive's non-residential section by adding bike lanes and see a three-way stop at one intersection on Woodall Crest Drive. But for now, our priority is to have clearly designated crosswalks and bike lanes to provide visual cues to drivers to be mindful of pedestrians, bikes, and scooters. I should say that I have addressed this council at 2 meetings in 2020 about safety concerns, and I thank the engineers and all of you for reevaluating and reducing the speed limit to 25 miles an hour on Woodall Crest Drive in the past. We hope safety is at the forefront of your minds when you are contemplating decisions about continued growth and development in our town. The engineers have done a remarkable job at planning a road system that gets cars efficiently from one place to another, but communities are changing. People are moving toward other priorities when it comes to getting around. To promote walkability, pedestrian safety cannot end at the curb. Pedestrians of all ages need to be able to cross the street safely. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Tabitha Smith.
So I'm the final speaker here today. I'm Tabitha Smith, 1936 Gray Meadow Drive. In summary, we're here to represent our neighborhood. We have other neighborhoods that are represented today too, who will speak as well. We are advocating for our neighborhood and some safety that involved our children. While we understand the accident that occurred in our neighborhood, our aim is to figure out how to keep our kids safe as we move forward. We are asking to put in a raised crosswalk that would be marked. There's a map on the back where I've indicated that there is only one unmarked crosswalk that our kids can use to safely get to school. Everybody in the Woodall Estates neighborhood is not allowed to be bused. They do have to walk. We would like to see a marked crosswalk that they have in place that will, like Karen said, draw attention to the fact that there are either pedestrians, kids, adults, we all use that and walk. We would like to ask for a bike lane to be put on Woodall Crest Drive to help with traffic or with parking. We do find that parking does aid in blocking and creating blind sites for both people who are walking, biking, and the cars who are also using the roads. In regards to safe neighborhoods, we're just respectfully asking a review of the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit that is currently in neighborhoods. We are appreciative of it being brought down in hours from 35 to 25, but we are also recognizing that there is a lot of electric bike use, scooters, skateboards, other speed propelling devices that kids and adults are using that are now evident on our streets. The combined speeds coupled with 25 miles an hour does increase your injury and death rates. So we are asking for just consideration for all of the neighborhoods here in Apex to reconsider whether 25 is actually safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Tanya Jeter.
Hi, I'm Tanya Jeter, 2775 Jordan Point, New Hill, which is under Apex, go figure. Before I get started, I have to say this because it's gay pride, or pride, not just pride. My first time getting in front of a town council was 1997 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And my high school someone had written an article for the school about being gay, and it was, they didn't put their name on it, but the whole town was upset about it. Like, this shouldn't be in our school. So I came out in front of a whole room of angry people that I was gay, and I appreciated the article. So anyways, because it's pride, it just made me think of that, and I wanted to bring that up. All right, moving on. It's funny, our neighborhood has the same concerns and has gone through the same process where we've reached out to engineering. I'm in Jordan Point, we were given a study, about traffic, and where we are right now, it's a 35-mile-per-hour zone. And just an example, 35 miles per hour goes through, and in Jordan Point, there's a two-sided sidewalk, double sidewalk that the whole community uses to ride bikes, to walk their dogs. And when it gets to this Horton Ridge Road, it goes to a single, and there's no sign that tells you when you're coming into the neighborhood or when you're this is a neighborhood. You're about to cross like a very major street. And so, I mean, even for myself, I've seen my 5-year-old just take off in his little ride about thing, just take off without looking both ways. I've seen my dog run across there. As we're talking about solutions, really, even just having a sign of kids playing, that would be an easy thing to do that would make an immediate impact, get people to slow down. Also, I love the idea of the crosswalk. Our community on our Facebook, we're talking about it too. We're worried as well. And I wanted to show my support for this community and also just say that it is a big issue that we're all aware of. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Tim Rusher.
My name is Tim Rusher, and I live in the Deer Creek community at 3457 Barn Road, just right next to the new TMSA building out there. Our community had brought up with the city engineers a couple of different times, and now a third time that we're trying to address with them again in terms of traffic in our neighborhood. It doesn't connect to anywhere. There's us, there's the retreat at Cedar Crossing, and then there's TMSA. The first concern that we brought up with them was when they had started to develop the retreat at Cedar Crossing, they made their only entrance to their neighborhood a right in, right out, so that you can't turn left into their neighborhood, sending all of their traffic down Barn Road. What we had asked for them to do was, why don't you make theirs the left turn? We'll take the right in, right out, because we can always use the other entrance to our neighborhood if that's not convenient for us. And frankly, we were actually literally laughed at by the city engineer for making those suggestions or thinking that our input was important. Second time we conversed with them was when the development of TSA was starting and concerns over traffic routing and how that was going to work. One of the main concerns was that we were concerned people were going to come down Barn Road because of the way that there's this little weird triangle there and you have to turn in off of 64 and then practically make a U-turn to get around there or whatever. And so we were asking you, can they make a left cut across on 64 so that all the people that would, invariably be coming from the eastern direction would be able to just cut across 64 and go scoot right in and stay off of Barn Road. And again, he said, well, we have nothing to do with that. That'd be NCDOT, but you'll never get them to approve something like that. Next day, called NCDOT, and of course, they had been contacted by the school that had requested that, and it was already in process. It was literally like the next week that was starting to be built, and it's great. Without that, I think it would be a disaster. Now the disaster is just over on their side and not really in our neighborhood, which is good. But with the candor that we have experienced in conversing with the engineers, and that I know our friends over in Woodall Estates has had, it's condescending, it's smug, and it's dismissive every single time that we interact with the city traffic engineers. Couple that with the fact that the Federal Highway Administration and the documents that you have in front of you have common recommendations that are out there, and a quick Google search, you don't even need to print that or go into the PDF. It's right on the summary page that in residential neighborhoods, such as where there's not a center line and where there are houses on either side, they federally recommend that be no higher of a speed limit than 20 miles per hour. And then I know that you're just operating on the recommendations of the engineers, and what they're telling you is nationwide, every residential road is 25 miles an hour across the country. Well, I moved here from Minneapolis. A lot of people have moved here from other places, and it's laughable that they would try and insist that that's still the case. I mean, there's people from everywhere in Apex, and that's simply not true. Default speeds where I moved from are 15 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood. And so, like they've been saying, things can be done, more things can be done. What I would request and what I would recommend is that perhaps it's time for a change in staffing, because they're not in tune with what's being federally recommended. they're being dismissive and lying to the media about how much they're being contacted by the residents. They're also lying to you by not conveying the concerns that we all have. And maybe they're just not the right people for the job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rusher. Kathy Restero. Kathy Restero. Okay. Marvin Hymason. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak. My name is Marvin Hymanson, as the mayor just said, and I live at 2907 Sunflower Road, Apex, North Carolina, 27502. I will be brief. I'm inquiring about the backlog of construction projects that are delayed, such as the Peakway Bridge, Pleasant Parks, and the turn lanes for Friendship Roads. Additionally, the lack of businesses toward New Hill and much-needed transportation projects for our growing community haven't been completed. How does the council plan to address this backlog? I provided my email on the sign-up sheet for response, and I am also here to support the next speaker, Ms. Ray Stitt. Thank you very much, council, for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Hymason.
Thank you.
All right. Elizabeth Stitt.
Elizabeth Stitt, 3113 Friendship Road, Mayor, Town Council, good evening. So you've heard from a lot of speakers tonight about the needs to improve the safety of our roads. I've been in front of you guys many a time saying, hey, your budget survey from January of last year said transportation was #2 priority. This year's budget survey said transportation was #1 community priority. The economic development report that was presented to you in December said transportation was #1 concern for economic development. We all know from the traffic study done back in 2016 with Pleasant Park that Friendship Road is rated at a level of service of F, which is the lowest level of service you can have. I have to thank a couple of people here tonight for helping us get our stop sign put back up and our street sign put back up. And I know there's been some contact with the DOT. But our turn lanes are still slated out for 2026, even though you know that we have a level of service of F. So when everybody talks about the concerns, we know that transportation needs to be funded as #1. Currently in the budget, last year it wasn't funded as #1. This year it's not budgeted as #1 priority. I know there's not a lot of time between now and June 27th to tweak numbers, but the turn lanes for Friendship Road are listed at $250,000. And if you look at the general fund balance, there are extra monies there that you could prioritize the safety of adding the street crossings that they're talking about, putting bumps in the road, putting our turn lanes. We do need to prioritize the safety of our people above bringing more people in. And I feel like the focus is on the big branch. The big branch Forest Main was listed at $26 million last year's budget. And this year it's at $40 million. And I have yet to see any discussion over why it jumped $14 million in 1 year. We need to put that on the back burner and prioritize our people who are here. We do not need anybody else getting hurt. So I ask you to please do what you can in the next 2 weeks to, try to accommodate some of the requests that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stitt. Ashutosh.
Good evening, council members. I'm a member of I'm resident of Woodall Estates. Just like my fellow neighbors here, I was very shocked by 2 weeks ago by horrific incident in our community when Ayan was hit by a car and died, and we were all shocked. I have an 8-year-old who goes to Scotts Ridge, and we're kind of afraid to cross now the Gray Meadow, the Woodall Crest Drive from Meadow Mill Lane. And just like all my residents said here, that we request a marked crosswalk so we can cross safely from Meadow Mill Lane to go to Scotts Ridge, and maybe a speed bump at the intersection of Meadow Mill Lane and Woodall Crest and Gray Meadow and Woodall Crest that will help people to slow down when we're crossing. Another thing I was seeing that people taking a left turn from Apex Barbecue towards Woodall Crest, I think they're trying to beat the oncoming traffic. They make a very fast left turn coming inside the community. So maybe a traffic light would help. That would slow down people coming in and they get their own turn to make a left turn. So overall, I'm in the same sentiment that my neighbors have expressed, that we need some plan to make Woodall Estate safer for our kids. But by the way, thank you very much for your service. We really enjoy living in Apex. Thanks for that. But I sincerely believe that this will help us to address our concern. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. All right, that is the last speaker for tonight for public forum, and we'll go ahead and close it now. What I want to do now is just quickly reiterate that we're listening. There was a reason I reached out to several of you and invited you into the council meeting. I wanted you to present information. You have all council members in the same room and staff as well. And we're serious about your concerns. We want you to know that. But before we move on, I think this is appropriate because we did lose a community member. And going out to the vigil is a very emotional time for our community. And I just want to take this time and do a moment of silence for Ayan, if you don't mind joining me in that. So please. Thank you. So I'll allow my colleagues to chime in with anything they want to say before we move on to the next business item. Again, we're listening and we have taken notes and we will be communicating with staff. And this is ongoing. So we want you to know that. So we're committed to working on solutions. So does anyone wish to speak tonight from council?
Well, I certainly want to say something, and I think it's important. I thank the community and those who live there for coming out to talk, because it helps provide us the details that we need. When we have a mishap like this, it is absolutely critical that we take a deep dive into all of the factors that are there. I know, what was it, January, when we adopted Vision Zero as our goal. We know that we are now at a 0 when it comes to our Vision Zero goal. We failed in that. But with that said, I do think it's important to understand that Vision Zero gives us an opportunity to take a look at incidents like this, do a real critical deep dive into it, and start taking a look at what other things we can look at. Whether it's crossing walks, stoplights, speed bumps, speed limits, everything's back on the table when it comes to this, because the thing that I know after talking to each one of my colleagues up here, every single one of us understand and say that the death of one child is one too many. The injury of anybody is one too many. And it's not hard for us to say that we're going to be able to take a real serious and hard look at what's there. In terms of how we're going to look at this, in the past, I know that our goal has always been to kind of look at what the traffic safety standards are. But one of the things that I know that our transportation department has been empowered with under Vision Zero is the purpose of Vision Zero is to say, let's look at how we can fix things, not look at how things have always been done in the past. So this gives us a chance to give a real fresh look. And hearing the comments and the suggestions from all of you, it's going to be important, because this is going to help us put together the best product to make sure that we're still ultimately maintaining and ensuring that safeguard. I know that this is something that's taken very seriously by Russell Dalton. This is something we've talked about, and I know that council will be instructing staff to provide us some details and data points, as well as some solutions, specifically with regard to some of the suggestions that were provided to us at a work session, so that we can come up with a way of not only solving it for this community, but how we can implement this around to all the other communities as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Gray. And I do want to add, there were some other requests tonight. I will let you know that we will direct staff to reach out to you. We have your contact information here to answer your questions. So thanks. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, obviously, we were all devastated about when we heard the news about this. And our biggest step forward here is to make sure that we get the right information, that we make the right decisions to make sure nothing like this happens again. And I can say that we're going to do our best to make sure that we get the guidance we need to try to make sure that doesn't happen. Staff is great at responding for when we're asking them to reassess things. So that's something I'm going to ask staff to do, is to reassess this area and some of the others that were brought up tonight. So the areas at Jordan Point and Deer Creek as well.
I want to chime in real quickly and say that a lot of what I'm hearing tonight is the focus on safety is a priority of this council, and Councilman Gray mentioned Vision Zero as one thing. We've made, I think, first of its kind investments in safe routes to schools the past few years, millions of dollars in that, and they've already been putting in sidewalks where they don't exist, and I think presumably crosswalks and everything else too along those lines. The thing we have the most control over is the newer neighborhoods that we have the rezoning power to approve. And one thing that I observed is that a lot of the neighborhoods that you guys live in and are talking about preceded all of us on this council. And the Depot 499 that's near your neighborhood is one example, I think, where we've thought more about safety and about pedestrians, and the street trees are the main thing in that neighborhood. That it's not built yet, but there are going to be street trees that are going to slow people down as they're driving by, and there's going to be parking on the road kind of dedicated for that purpose. All those things are not just to make it look good, but also for safety. And so my hope is that the newer neighborhoods that we have the most control over are the ones that we will learn some unfortunate lessons from your guys' neighborhoods. And then we all obviously have the chance to do investments throughout town to try to prioritize safety improvements as well. And I think there's a list that we have, it's quantitative, and I think it will be the highest priority things. And I think, unfortunately, pedestrian injuries and deaths are on that list as a way to bump the rankings up. And so my hope is that we use that list and the investments the best way to improve safety across the entire town.
All right, well, let me jump on. So I had a couple of minutes before the meeting to speak to some of the residents, and so I appreciate the input. Yeah, I think there's a couple of main takeaways here. I echo what my fellow colleagues here have said about Vision Zero and our investments in sidewalks and pedestrian safety. But we have, clearly more to do. I think one of the key things to recognize is that our usage of our roads is changing. We have a very active community that is more inclined to pick up a bicycle or walk somewhere. And our roads, especially our connecting roads, right, the DOT roads that connect a lot of our neighborhoods, are just not built to those kind of standards, right? And so that's something that, as we continue to develop our town and our vision, and start filling in the blanks on sidewalks and such, we need to recognize that and keep that front and center. I think secondly, to recognize this is not unique to one neighborhood, right? This is really pervasive throughout our town and the towns surrounding us. So this is not just fix one area and we're done, right? This is something that really needs to become part of our vision and future development plans. And then I had a third theme and it just escaped me, but let me keep it at that. So I appreciate the input. Again, I cannot emphasize enough how laden this is. The death of a child is very, very difficult for everybody, and it hits home. It hits home.
Yeah. Thank you to my council members. Well said, and Councilmember Gray, especially your description of what we have to do, I think is really on point. I think it's important at the end here to acknowledge that this was a failure, right? Like, we had a child die in our community, and it's shocking. And I can't explain what I was feeling when I heard it. I can't explain how I'm feeling now, hearing about it, and just imagining having small children myself the same age, on the same street, not too far from this community. It's hard to talk about, and I really wish that there was something I could say tonight. I really wish, like, oh, let's just put a crosswalk here, we'll fix it, and move on. That's what we can't do. We can't just say, put a Band-Aid on this and do one thing. We have to look at the systems that caused this? What's the system that failed here, not just this incident or this road, you know? And like some of my other colleagues were saying, it really is going to involve some retrofitting of some old communities. It's going to involve thinking about how we design new communities going forward, how we integrate some of these new modes of transportation, how we want to build communities to encourage different modes of transportation. There's a lot to it, and it's, thank you all so much for coming out here. It was very brave of you to come and speak about this. I know it hurts a lot, and I promise this is not gonna be the last time we talk about this. As we gather more information, we're gonna look for ways, not only to address specific conditions on any given road, but how we build stuff and the systems that contribute to these kind of failures. So,
If I could add one system that we haven't talked about. I know we've talked about the physical things that we can do here, but I know this is something that every single one of us in this room can do, which is, this is a mindset change. We've got to change how we think about roads. It is shocking to me that the same person who will stop in the middle of the street because a bunch of geese are crossing the street will not give 4 feet for a bicyclist. This is the mental change that we've got to make. And you guys coming here today helps us, give us hope to know that there is the potential of getting that change. So please keep telling your story. We'll keep shouting your story. We've got to make this change, because this isn't just about roads, street signs. It's about how we treat each other. We've got to be peak politeness, people. Peak politeness.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for coming out, every one of you. Thank you. All right, we move now to public hearings. And the first one is public hearing 1. And unfortunately, the public notice requirements were not fully met for this item. Therefore, staff is requesting this item to be continued until the regular council meeting on August 8, 2023.
Make that motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Second, Gray. Any discussion? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, public hearing 2, water and sewer system fee analysis and system development fees, presented tonight by Michael Deaton, Water Resources Director.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As the mayor said, Mike Deaton, Water Resources Director for the town of Apex. Tonight before you is a public hearing for system development fees. Every 5 years, we have to update our report that explains the basis of our fee. And so in 2023, we hired Raf Tellis, and Elaine Vastus is here. She'll be coming up shortly to give a quick presentation. But I did want you to know that we have followed all of the 45-day public commenting period. This report's been on the town's website. We meet the public hearing requirements outlined by the state statutes, and we have not received any comments thus far. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Elaine and let her present a quick summary of the fee and the basis for it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
As Mr. Deaton mentioned, we were engaged to perform a system development fee analysis. To give you a little bit of background, in 2017, there was legislation that was passed that established guidelines for calculating these fees, as well as a process that you must follow that the town and many other municipalities in 2017 followed at that time. You do have to update that study every 5 years, so we're in the process. This is why we're here today. And the process, as Mr. Deaton mentioned, is once the calculation is performed, it is documented in a report that then the municipality has to post on their website and give 45 days for written public comment. After that 45 days, you could have the public hearing and then adopt the fees. As mentioned, there were no comments obtained during that 45-day period. And the guidance or the legislation in effect allows you to use 3 different methodologies. And these fees that we're talking about, by the way, are for growth, new homes. That's what they're assessed against. So what you're doing is you're calculating a unit cost for the infrastructure, the water and sewer infrastructure that you have built or will be building, and you assess it against new development, and you can use one of 3 methodologies. The first is the buy-in approach, which is basically you're looking backwards, meaning you're looking at what water and sewer infrastructure you have built to estimate the value. The second methodology is the incremental approach, which means you're looking forward. You're looking at your capital improvement plan to establish the value. And then the third methodology is a combination of the 2. So you're kind of looking at what you've built and what you plan to build. So to kind of walk you through for each of the systems, for the water system, we use the buy-in method, which means we looked at the infrastructure that has been built. The reason for that is over the next 5 years, the town has adequate capacity. So we're looking at the infrastructure that you have built. The buy-in approach takes the fixed asset records in your accounting system, and it escalates those to today's dollars, but then recognizes depreciation, that those assets have been used. And then what we do is we have to take certain adjustments. We added in construction work in progress, which means projects capacity related that you're currently building that are going to be finished within the year. And we also added developer reimbursements. Then we take certain deductions, so subtractions. One is what are contributed by developers, because that's infrastructure. Since it's been contributed, you don't include it in your value. And then the second is outstanding principal. So once we make those adjustments for the water side, the value of the system that we determined was about 90 million for the water system. We then divide by the total treatment capacity, and that gives you a unit cost per gallon per day. So it represents the value in the water system. That's $6.99. And then to equate it to a single family residential home, what we do is we identify how much gallons per day a single family residential home will use, which is 250 gallons per day. And that was based on the master plan that the town recently had for its water system. You multiply those together and we determined the $1,788 for the water system. So that would be assessed against a new residential home. And then on the sewer side, we used the combined approach. And the reason for that is over the next 5 years, especially in the first couple of years, the Big Branch 2 pump station is going to be completed, which will allow for growth. So for this calculation, what we did is we combined the 2. So you have the buy-in approach where, again, we looked at the fixed assets, brought it up to today's dollars and subtracted as we did for the water system. And then we bring forward the incremental cost, which is looking at the projects, the pump station, as well as a couple of other projects. And we take some additional credits, and the net cost for the sewer system that the value is based on is 127 million. Again, that's looking kind of backwards and forwards. And then we divide by the treatment capacity of the sewer system, and we get a cost per gallon per day for the sewer system of $14.30. Then we identify the gallon per day for the sewer system, and we do treat those differently since the gallon per day for the system for a residential unit is different on the sewer side than on the water side. On the sewer side, the town uses the North Carolina state guidelines that are established for sewer flow. So the sewer fee is $4,290 compared to the current fee of $3,675. And to give you a little bit of context and how this may compare, we provided a comparison with some other of the surrounding towns. For Cary, Holly Springs, and Fuquay-Varina, these are what are currently in their recommended budget, so not necessarily approved, but what they have calculated to, again, kind of give you some context as how the proposed fees for the town compare to others. happy to answer any questions. It was brief.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
Questions?
I have a question. So the daily usage on an average unit, how can an average unit create more sewage water than it takes in tap water?
It's less about how the comparison with how much it is in terms of you use the state guidelines on the sewer side, which typically has a minimum amount that they want you to plan for because they don't want to have the sewer overflows. And so we do treat those differently, as opposed to kind of thinking what exactly is on the, average water use may be returned on the sewer side. It's really kind of looking at what the system has to be designed for to make sure that you don't have a sewer overflow. And so there,
Capacity plus method. So it's what an actual unit would use plus the extra capacity to prevent. Right.
Exactly. That's why that does, they are different from that standpoint, and we're separating them out. So
Is that clear to the development community? Because like if somebody were to look at these numbers, like would they understand why one is 44 gallons higher than the other? Because like it makes a material change to the rate, right?
In the report, we do document the two sources. Most of them are kind of familiar, I think, with the state guidelines, and also the town in their specifications that developers, I think, kind of look to when they're building. It also mentions the 300 gallons per day. So I think it's documented, but it's a great question, though.
Thank you.
Sure.
Right. So there's these multiple methods you can choose to calculate the fee. And I'm assuming, do we choose the one that calculates the highest fee? Is that kind of the idea? Or the one that's most appropriate given the conditions, like there's really not a choice, like we have to use buy-in, as you call it, because of the state of our system, that sort of thing?
You do have some discretion. What we chose to do was to look at what was more appropriate and timeline. So what I mean by that is the state guidelines allow you to look at a planning horizon of no less than 5 years, no greater than 20. So in theory, you can look at a capital improvement plan. If you had one that went 20 years, you could theoretically include all of those projects. We chose to look at it because it's being renewed every 5 years, to look at that 5-year period of time to include any projects in the incremental approach. In other words, if there was a capacity related project within the next 5 years, we included it in the fee, which was only on the sewer side. So you do want to use something that's appropriate, but you do have kind of leverage in terms of that planning horizon that you include in the value. I hope that helps.
Sort of. So if we use the buy-in method for the water systems development fee, does that mean that the new homes coming in and paying these fees, we're not calculating their fee based on any water towers we're going to build or something like that?
Correct, because we looked at just the next 5 years, and for the water system in the capital improvement plan, there was no significant capacity over the next 5 years. There's a future plant expansion out, I think past the 10-year period horizon. So
5 years from now, we might come back and say,
exactly,
that plan.
exactly.
Weren't we planning a new water tower by Pleasant Park?
Yeah.
So was that one included in the analysis?
I'm not sure. I'd have to see when that was slated. Mike.
It's in the current, it's funded already, so it's not in the CIP for future years. It's already funded now, and so we're in the design process right now.
But then aren't we missing something? Because if it's not in the historical that we've looked at, and it's not in the future that we have not yet looked
It would have been in
at.
2018.
I think it may have been in construction work in progress potentially. Okay.
Yeah, I guess like what I'm searching for here is, and this slide kind of underlines it, that our water development fees are a fraction of everyone else. And I'm just wondering, at a high level, is there an explanation for that? Like, is something going on in Holly Springs that their water development fee is?
You know Holly Springs, right? We heard about that, right? The $100 million thing they have to do, right?
Is that what it is? Is they're trying to fund a $100 million water line, so they got a $6,000 some dollar development fee? Is that basically it?
It does absolutely depend on what their capital improvement plan is, what time period they're looking at, and also the denominators. What you typically see, this isn't always the case, larger systems sometimes will have actually smaller system development fees, just because that denominator for the treatment capacity is so great. So there's a lot of differentiation of these, but I think what you're seeing on some of these others is what capital improvements they're looking to fund, and if that's hitting now versus out in the future, and what time horizon they're considering.
I mean, Cary and us have the same exact system, right?
You do have the same system, but we're also including, that's treatment, so you have the same treatment system, but all the other infrastructure, transmission mains and other tanks and so forth, as well as how much of that capacity that you own and debt you may have outstanding versus what they have, all, contributes to it as well.
Is this GPD per ERU value that we were talking about earlier, is that something we can set? Can we just wave our hand and say it's 300 gallons?
No, you have to have it in terms of the way that the legislation is written. It needs to be what you're planning and engineering, what you use for planning and engineering purposes.
Sure, but we can tell everyone to plan and engineer for 300 gallons.
I'm sorry?
We can tell everyone to plan and engineer for 300 gallons going forward. Like, that's part of the hand widths. It's a big wave.
If you want
Really
a lawsuit, this is a good thing to go up the route, I think. And we've already experienced something like this.
Councilmember, I just think that people should have adequate access to water. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we're getting it.
Back to the.
So wait, is the answer yes or no?
It should be when you're planning for internal purposes, based on what you're looking at capacity. So typically you have an engineering study that's done, or state guidelines that are helping you set what these gallons per day are.
I guess the question is that the standard value? Is 256 like what everyone uses for the value? Like, what is this? It seems like a magic number right now. That's a pretty big input into this overall fee.
The 256 is based on the master plan for engineering, where they looked at use per day for single family home, peaking factor, water loss factor. So that's what they used when they were looking at what your system needs to be sized for in the future. So that's how that was developed, because it was the master plan was distributed October 2022. So that's the latest and greatest number on the water side.
Okay, can you address where we got that number from? Yeah.
I don't recall exactly from the report. Marty may have a better idea on that, but HDR is our consultant, and the study is called the Town's Long Range Water Resources Plan Update. And I believe it's on a 5-year cycle as well. And they took, they've got all our GIS, they've got all our meter data, and so they come up with that 256 based on actual raw water usage, the number of units, population, everything. Then they come up with that 256 gallons per day per unit on the water side. On the sewer side, that 300 is purely a permitting number. So when a new development comes in and they've got 10 homes that's coming in, that 300 gallons per day is what we have to provide capacity for. So the state requirement is 360 gallons per day. And you can get, I want to say back in 2000, we got a reduction to 300 based on actual flow data. And that's what we've been using as long as I've been here, which is 18 and a half years. So 300 gallons per day per unit is what we typically permit for single family homes and townhomes. And then on the apartments and condo units, it's 250. Generally have less bedrooms than you would have in your single family home.
Okay.
That's where the 300 number comes from. It's our primary way of making sure we have adequate capacity in the wastewater treatment plants.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-on question back to the sewage capacity? So we were looked at a 5-year look ahead, in terms of capital investment. That presumably does not include the upfit of the Western Wake reclamation facility, does it?
I believe we have that in. Is that not in?
That's beyond, I think.
Right.
So it's right at that.
So my question, that's kind of where my question is going, right? So we know we have a major capital project probably 10 years out, but we're not including it in the analysis right now. So how are we going to basically put money in the bank to pay for this capital improvement 10 years from now if we're not accounting for it today, right? And so should we start making allowances for that now rather than waiting another 5 years for this plan to refresh and all of a sudden it comes into scope, right? And our fees are going to skyrocket.
Yeah. I'll defer to you. I mean, the state allows us from a 5 to a 20-year window.
Right, and so since that 5 to 20 year is a timeline that we can choose, right? Should we use a 10-year timeline, make sure that that Western Lake outfit is included in our view, so we can kind of even out the fees, because right now, like 5 years from now, we're going to see these fees double, right? Based on, or I'm not sure if it's double, but there's going to be a significant increase because all of a sudden this capital project is coming into view, right?
I think that's at a minimum. We can update it annually if we wanted to, right?
Yeah, you could. One of the other things is it depends on how you fund it. So if a lot of it is debt funded and then you have to take the debt credit, it may not increase as much as you think it would increase. But one of the reasons we just looked at a 5-year period was because like last time when we were doing this, those projects can shift out. And so that's why we decided to just kind of look at a 5-year period.
Right, but if I can put money in the bank and avoid debt, right, I'd much rather do that than have to have to do a bond to pay for this outfit later, right? We know it's coming, right? If we have the ability to set our fees, taking that investment into account, wouldn't that be a better approach than finding ourselves having to do a bond 10 years from now, right? To basically and incur that load onto the town.
And it's still a timing thing too, in terms of as you're continuing to collect these system development fees, year after year, they don't necessarily match exactly the project that you have. So they can be, in other words, capacity is going to be built just like it has previously. You always have to build it for so much in the future. So you're still going to be collecting system development fees that can go towards that future development as well.
But how much of that is taken in? So I know we're tucking money away into our reserves, right? And so there's some money being set aside to fund that big expense later down the road. Are we confident that it's covered, right? Or do we indeed anticipate that to make it happen, right? Because if we're anticipating that, then I would argue that this number is too low, right? We should up that number in anticipation of that investment.
There will probably potentially be debt in the sense of that capacity that you're going to get is going to take you out for how far? Probably 20, I can't remember what it was. Is it like, if it's not going to take place until like 2030? In other words, you'd be collecting those capacity fees for now until, that capacity is going to start for years and years. So you'd still be collecting those over the next 20-year period. So even if you were collecting on the first 5, you may not have enough to completely offset that project in 5 years because customers will continue to connect down the road. That's the whole challenge with these, is the timing of it.
Right. But so has that analysis occurred, right? Because like without it, like it feels like we're almost like sticking our head in the sand. We know something big is coming, but we're not taking it into account in our current planning, assuming that over the next 25 years, it will all land on its feet, right? And that's just not a very comfortable position for me.
Now, we plan through the long-range water resource planning update process. And so that information and the timing on when we need certain upgrades is carried over to the CIP. And so the CIP development is kind of where whether or not you got enough money to fund that particular project at that particular time, or are we going to have to do something else, or do you move the project further down another year or so?
Yeah, so then my question is okay, so we have planned that out, right, for the next however many years, right? Are we confident that with these fees as we set them today, we are adequately covered as far as your future CIP needs are concerned?
I don't know the answer to that.
So
we don't know the cost.
but we can make estimates, right? So like, okay, we can be $10 million off, but like it needs to be considered, or I believe it needs to be considered as part of the plan. And I feel like by just having a 5-year look ahead view, we're ignoring something that we know is going to hit us in 10 years. I guess enough said.
Is the ask maybe that we think about a 10-year CIP? I mean, personally, I feel like years 4 and 5 kind of really matter. It's kind of like too far out to even make that much difference. But in this case, it maybe would be beneficial. So I don't know if there's a desire to go a longer range CIP so that we could take advantage of that.
So I think this analysis, right? So the method used to come up with this 4290 needs to have a 10-year look ahead instead of the 5-year look ahead, because we know that Western Lake reclamation facility is going to hit us within the next 10 years.
Well, dude, I don't think we know that, right? 10 years sounds fast to me, right?
2030 is what's been
Yeah,
predicted.
it'll be
So
within 10 years.
To expand the facility is 10 years? Okay. I thought it was like 25 or something. Okay.
No.
I think,
Go ahead.
I mean, I think Councilman Zegerman has a very, very good point here. That we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by not planning ahead adequately for a huge expansion coming up, and we know it's going to be costly. And it would be a much better fit for us to start addressing how much we need to set back now instead of 5 years down the road. You know, we've lost 5 years to collect fees to address the cost of this. So
let me try to articulate more precisely why I feel uncomfortable right now. And it's this chart right here. So when I see that we're charging 17, and I understand there's math behind it, and I've tried to understand it, maybe I don't quite get it, and that's my fault. I'll go back and try to think about it some more. Maybe I'll read the actual study. But in the next 5 years, when we set these fees, like, guys, like our home starts and our permits are falling. Like, growth in Apex is slowing. Like, people don't believe it yet, but if you look at the data, it's obvious that over the past couple of years, the line is going down. So when I see that number saying this is gonna be for the next 5 years, I see 5 years of lost revenue compared to our neighbors that we're gonna need. And granted, in 5 years, we can raise this up when we do some different calculation and it says we need to fund some expansion or whatever. But at that point, like, what are the homes connecting at that point gonna be able to fund if they're less than they are today? So that's really my concern, is that the impact of the slowing growth on Apex, like, this is kind of where it starts to hit us, where we start to think about our water and sewer capacity. Like, everyone gets upset about growth and how fast it is, but that's money that we get to pay for stuff. And as that growth is slowing, that's less money to pay for stuff. Like, am I wrong?
you're not wrong.
Right. So that's really the concern, is like, where the growth is slowing, we're issuing less permits, we're issuing less connection fees. So when I see 1788 and I see Holly Springs is 6162, I see $4,000 per home getting lost.
Well, what Arno's talking about is the other one, right? He's talking about the 4290. Right.
I think the conversation is roughly similar, though, right? Because, like, there's a projection that's made that over the next, you know, in the case of the water treatment facility, right? Like, we have X capacity right now. We know we need to invest within the next 10 years. Then our capacity is much larger, and we'll continue to collect these fees, you know, while we have sufficient capacity. If that rate of collection is slowing down because of the, you know, the slower growth of the town, it's, you know, puts the end goal at jeopardy, right? Like, we may not recover what we think we need right now, right? So I much rather say, okay, let's take the 10-year horizon, make sure that we have those capital improvements accounted for, set the fees appropriately, because, you know, we are the lowest in Wake County right now, right? In comparison, make sure that we recover the appropriate fees and have some money in the bank, right, for when those capital projects are going to hit us, so we don't have to do the debt funding, we don't have to do, you know, increase additional debt services onto the town. I'd much rather take the money out of the bank than, you know, get a loan to go do it.
Okay, we're in questions for them right now. Do you have any more questions for them? And then we'll go to
no, I'm good.
Discussion. Okay, thank you all so much.
I was just going to ask, is there an analysis that we can do to respond to the questions that they're asking, to look at what a 10-year look would look like, or some analysis on potentially raising the fees and the impact?
We can look at it. I think the question would be, you know, the process that you have to follow to then repost the analysis in the 45-day public comment period. That's the only thing you maybe want to think about in terms of and being able to charge the fees that you currently have.
Sure. And to that point, can this be revised annually? Does it have to be, I think you said earlier, we can do it however often we want.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
No, yeah, no
Okay.
later than 5 years, you can do it.
So we can do a different analysis next year for the next
Let's
budget.
move forward with this.
Move forward with this and then
I agree.
do another look for next year.
Yeah, maybe,
To include everything we just talked about, because it's much better to fund it based on the fees that we've been collecting up to, rather than having to incur debt to do it.
What's the due date for this? Like, is there a hard date? Like, so if we do incur the other 45 days, right, of public notice, does that break anything? Like, are we getting
our budget.
expect
That we're passing.
It's part of the-
can be part of the budget once we pass them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the 2030, is that the water treatment plant that's 2030 or the Western Wake?
Western Wake.
Okay, so it would be the 4290 that we would potentially be different.
Yep.
Which is the highest, second highest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that matters, but it's just, that's the thing we're talking about is.
Do a public hearing.
Yeah, we got to do that. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Okay.
Before we move on, just for clarification, we want to move forward with what we have today, and then for the budget for next year, look at this again. Is that what I'm hearing from you all?
I'll address that in a second. Yeah, but basically.
Okay, thanks, everyone. We'll go ahead and open up public hearing for this item. No one has signed up, therefore we'll close public hearing. And now it's back to discussion and possible motion.
Yeah, I think that it would be, for purposes of doing this, now that we've got the data point, knowing that we can make the adjustment annually, I do think that it's important for us to take a look at these numbers again, but because we have the notice out there, that we proceed forward with regard to this. And that will give staff enough time to help create some of the substantiation behind any increase, either on the water or on the sewer side. Because the thing that I'm concerned about, and I think I echo the concerns of Councilman Gant, which is we don't want to look as if we're making an arbitrary increase in fees simply because we want the money. We can ultimately make an increase in fees provided we can say, based upon our analysis and our upcoming costs that we know that we're going to have, we can get there. So I think we need to give staff time to come up with that number for us. But I would propose that we move forward with these numbers now and then bring this up again. What do you think about 9 months from now? To give staff time to kind of
I
just to check
would
in
want to
with us?
start earlier, because I don't want to have the same situation next year where we're 2 weeks, before budget passing and we're having this conversation, right? This is a conversation that needed to be had back in March.
So they start in the budget, next month though, right? So like, we're gonna be able to start adjusting.
My request is that we have a little bit of a broader discussion, because really where my comments are coming from, it's not just water and sewer, although water and sewer is a huge part of it. It's the overall general impact of the slowing growth in Apex and how that's going to impact all of our budgets, and what are we doing as a town? How are we planning for that? Because our Parks and Rec budget, the fees we collect for there are going to go down. The fees for water and sewer, there's a whole host of things that has me nervous when I see our permitting revenue is probably the biggest proxy for that stuff. So I guess that's a question I want to ask is could staff analyze what is the impact on the town budget for slowing growth in the next couple of years that we've seen the past couple of years and going forward? Am I just being ridiculous and it's gonna be fine? Say that's a good answer too. Look, it'll be okay. But I guess that's really what I'm trying to get at, and this is just one element of that. So I think a work session on that topic of what's this gonna look like for Apex as the growth slows, as we fill out, and how can we prepare for that? What type of things can we do today to make it easier 10 years down the road? Because what I don't want to do is have to jack up this fee in 5 years or 10 years and have 1/10 the homes built that year to cover the increased cost. That's not great. So that'd be my request. But I concur with going forward. I think if we don't pass this tonight, then we're stuck with last year's fees, which are lower than this. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So,
okay, thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? I think we pretty much know what we need to do. All right, motion to approve. Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Thank you very much for the presentation. All right. Move now to new business 1.
Okay, that was my request to pull this from consent. This is regarding the $2,250,000 reimbursement for road improvements around Felton Grove High School. I really wanted to pull this really just for sake of transparency more than anything. It's a big number to commit to, certainly in consent, and I didn't want to set the impression that we were avoiding a discussion about a $2.25 million allocation. So I just wanted to pull this out. Now, at the end of the day, this is something that we are required to do because of the state laws requiring us to fund road improvements around new school development. This is something that has been discussed by council before as part of CIP planning last year before my time. But it was discussed. It's therefore included in the CIP, and annual allocations have been set to cover this amount. Again, like my only objective here was to increase the transparency on where this 2.25 million is coming from, and that we as a town really had no say in the matter because of the regulation that we're in compliance with here. So I'm not sure if there's any further commentary or discussion needed.
I will never pass up an opportunity to complain about this law. If you want to talk about it some more.
Good. Let's go.
I think it's a terrible law. I think what's going on here, like as my colleague was saying, is that it was I think in the state budget 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, at this point, and the state budget contained a policy change. The policy change basically says that schools build schools, and then the towns build roads and infrastructure. And the justification was that if public dollars are being appropriated to build a school, that should go to actual school construction. And then public dollars are being appropriated to a town, or a town taxes to get public dollars that should be used to build town stuff. So they made this little neat division that if you're a school, I think it's private schools as well. I think the statute just says schools, or is it only public schools? Yeah, it's all schools. It just says schools. So that's the law. So that if a school gets built, the town builds the roads. What happens is we go through the regular process where there's traffic impact analysis studies, and we come out the other end what needs to happen for this school like it was any other development. The only difference is in the school case, we pay for it. We don't just say go do this. We say go do this, and also here's a check to go do it. That's what the law says. This isn't the first time this has happened. If we were to check for TMSA as well, this won't be the last time. I think every single school built going forward will probably have some improvement. If there's a turning lane, if there's a light, we have to pay for that. I think it's really, really bad for 2 reasons, to get to my point. The first are the policy choices that it sort of, encourages. By removing the cost of roads and transportation infrastructure from schools, it encourages them to get the cheapest, most distant piece of land they can find that might be otherwise undevelopable. But hey, the town has to go build the road to it because that's what the law says. So let's go do that. When that's part of their budget, that encourages good development choices where infrastructure is near other infrastructure. On our end, this is the equivalent of us making that road to the school or that turning lane or whatever piece of traffic infrastructure at the top of our CIP when we have a bunch of other priorities that are more important, as we were elected to decide to do. It encourages towns to do what they can to avoid new schools. Like we're fortunate that we have the funds to pay for stuff like this. Imagine if you're a small town and someone comes and says, I want to build a school. You need to build me a 4-lane thoroughfare or whatever needs to handle it. That could be devastating to a smaller town with less funds. It encourages those towns to, make zoning choices. And this actually has happened in places, I don't want to name the names, but this has actually happened where towns have made policy choices to discourage schools in their community because of this potential bill this might cause. It's terrible. So that's that. Like it's bad from a policy point of view. It encourages the wrong things. It's unfair. Every other developer has to pay for their things. The school should as well. The last point has to do with the actual, let's assume that point is unconvincing and you think town should pay for it. There's one other thing that bugs me about this, is that when the school is built, that the entire cost falls on the municipality that has the school in it. Even if that school will serve students from multiple surrounding municipalities, there should be some formula that like, hey, we should split this cost with whatever, it doesn't have to be exact, but like, a third here, a third here, a third here. But if the school is just 1 meter inside the boundary of Apex, Apex bears the entire cost, even if that school serves all the other students. And I think that even if you believe this is good policy, the cost should be split between the municipalities served by the school. And those are my comments.
I actually agree with you on the bad incentives to put schools in remote places, and that was why there was a bitterly divided vote in 2020 on this council about the school, and I thought the location was very poor. I hope the school is great, but like this was the inevitable consequence of that vote that I lost. But anyway,
I was with you on it.
I don't think this is that bad. And I'll tell you why. I like the idea of we're controlling our streets. I don't want Raleigh controlling how I've got to deal with the traffic problem at Apex Friendship. I don't want that. I'm fine. You know what? Is it an additional cost? It is. It's a road. It's a road for kids and students. If I want it built the right way, I trust Russell Dalton and our guys much more than the folks downtown to take care of that. I get I can understand and sympathize with the arguments, but I'll be the contrary vote on this. I don't mind putting my money to put a school where my kid goes, put money on a road where my kid goes to school. And I'd much rather have me controlling that than some Yahoo out in Chatham County.
I guess I'll just tell that to the Friendship folks that their road's getting pushed out because of this project. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you know, kind of the counter argument, right? This is $2.25 million that we could have spent elsewhere, right? And especially the location of this school in the southeast corner of our municipality, where it's going to be drawing students primarily from Cary and Holly Springs, but we in Apex bear the cost. So anyway, I just wanted to pull this for transparency more than anything. We still need to vote on it. We have no choice, but so.
Thank you, Councilman, for doing that. Yeah, I think it's necessary we discuss it. So, all right, can we move forward? Everybody good? All right.
I feel better.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, you got a motion second. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Thank y'all very much. We'll move now to town manager updates.
Cool.
Ms. Crosby.
Well, a couple things. One, we had a really nice Pride weekend. So I always say this. I really like when we have things on campus because it just feels like a really family and community oriented event. So it was nice. It was good weather, well attended. So excited that we had another successful Pride event. Looking forward to our Juneteenth event this Saturday at the Depot from 11 to 6. And just as a reminder, we'll be celebrating Juneteenth on Monday, June 19th, so we will not be open on that day. And last but not least, I want to congratulate Shannon Cox, who was recognized as a mover and shaker in Cary Magazine.
Right.
So thank you, and those are all my updates.
Thank you, Manager Crosby. All right, move now to closed session item. Possible motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3 to discuss the handling of the matters Town of Apex v. Lund and Town of Apex v. Mills, and then closed session number 2.
So moved.
All right, motion.
Second.
Gray, second. Zagerman. Discussion. None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. We'll move now to closed session, and we have no more further business in the chamber tonight. Thank you.
on mine? We'll wait to get a thumbs up.
Yeah. I do want to make at least one thing.
Is this be back?
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah, just one thing, just one comment I want to make sure that we got on the record, which is the, after coming out of closed session, I think it's important that we ask ask the Personnel Committee to take a look at some of our procedures with regard to how our town employees can bring grievances and concerns, to include things such as the use of either an ombudsman or an inspector general, or whether it's a board process in order to help provide some additional avenues for our employees to be able to bring those concerns to the management that needs to be made aware of those things. But I also think it should not be limited to just employees. It's something that immediate former employees should probably be able to take advantage of as well.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Okay, all right. That